Well, I just got this knife here. This is my 78 GEC American Jack 2-blade with elderberry jig bone covers. And if you looked at my unboxing video, you'll notice that I talked about these two nail nicks and how this blade was partially covering the nail nick on the main blade. And I compared it to this knife here to show the difference. And I believe now you can see they're much closer. This one still is a little bit, I think this main blade is sitting a little bit higher, but I'll show you what I did. I talked about this point right here called the kick. Now, if you look at it this way, other than, and that these marks here are just from the blade opening and closing within the pivot here. But if you look at it, it looks pretty much factory, or it does look factory. There's nothing here that you really would look at and say, oh, it's been modified. But if you flip it over, I think you're going to be able to see on video what I did. You can see there's a small flat spot on the kick right here. The way I achieved this is I pulled out my DMT. There we go. My DMT stones, and I started on the extra fine, and I used that for a little bit, but it really wasn't making enough progress for me, so I flipped it over and set it on the fine side, and I believe you can see there's a line of steel, and all I did was take this knife, lay it flat on the surface like this, like that, if you can see it there, and I just moved it back and forth in a straight line. And every now and then I would close it and I would check it. And eventually it got to the point where I felt like I could easily open up this blade, and that's all I was really looking for. I could go a little bit more, but I don't want, you can see, and that's not a good angle. You can see here, this nail nick on the secondary blade is getting close to starting to disappear into the blade well. I'm not too concerned about the blade hitting the bottom of the blade well, the back spring, and causing blade wrap, because this blade is not broad. It's very, very narrow. So that's not a concern. That's another reason why I could go ahead and do what I did. So I don't suggest that you do it on your own knife unless you know what you're doing, but that's what I did. So take that for what it's worth. Like I said, I mean, if you're gonna do this, it would definitely be at your own risk. So I would not suggest doing this to your knife unless you are comfortable with the possibility that you might mess the knife up. Like I said, it's at your own risk. I'm not suggesting that this is a modification for any and everybody. This is definitely something that you want to take your time and you want to really be knowledgeable about what you're doing. As a comparison, you can see here, and I'm going to open up this blade too. As a comparison, you can see here, this one has not been modified, and you can see that point I was talking about, and it does look like it got hit maybe on the edge there a little bit. But if you look at this side, you can see it's a very, very, very sharp point right here. Whereas this one, you can see that it's there's a flat spot. So that's what I did. I just removed that peak and made it more flat, which dropped the blade lower into the blade well. Very easy, but again, I would not suggest doing this if you're not going to take your time and be cautious. And if you're not comfortable with possibly ruining your knife. Now, ruin, I use that term a little bit loosely, because could you remove too much of that kick and drop that blade too low and make it where that nail nick was not accessible? Absolutely, absolutely. Now, there are two different ways to look at that. That's the secondary blade. There's still a primary blade, so this knife would still be functional somewhat for all intents and purposes. However, obviously if they're 2 blades, you'd want to use 2 blades. You could send it back to GEC, and I'm sure for a minimal fee, they would replace the blade. Now, if you go back in my videos, the only time I've sent in any knives, it took me about 6 months to get my knives back. So I don't know. I don't think that's the typical experience. So I'm not trying to say that's the typical experience. However, you will be out of time and money, probably not a lot, but time and money if you do ruin your knife by filing down that kick. So if this is something you're interested in, just take your time, go slowly and constantly as you've got it open and you're working on it. Close it up, look at it, see where this nail nick is in regards to your cover, and see where this nail nick is in regard to your blade. Once it gets to the point where you can open it the way you like, I say stop. So again, you can see here, these are the 2 knives that I worked on, and you can see this one came fine. This one I had to work on. And again, you can go back to my unboxing video and you can see what these 2 knives looked like in comparison to one another on that video. So I appreciate you guys watching. I hope to catch you in the next video. And always remember, a lazy man carries a dull knife.